I think I slowly just started to like, you know what? This poetry writing thing, how about we just go ahead and throw this in the trash? What up, Black man? Welcome to the Beneficial Black Man podcast, where we journey together to overcome mediocrity and become beneficial for our community by sharing lessons from the highs and lows of life. I'm your host, Jamal Calpent. How y'all doing? Hopefully you're doing well. Hopefully you're protecting your mental, finding time for an emotional release valve, and continuing to strive to become beneficial. I feel like it's been a little while since I shared an episode or shared a podcast. Life has been lifing, and there are things that I'm really trying to work on and change in my life so that I can be in a better place. And that requires time. That requires more time, more energy. I need to focus in the right place, during this season. Because if I don't, if your attention is going to the wrong thing, you might invest in the wrong stuff at the wrong time. So do I still think the Beneficial Black Man is important? Absolutely. Do I still think you all are important? Absolutely. But I know as I try to give that advice to you all, you got to take care of yourself first. You got to make sure your situation and everything that's going on with you is best first so that you can pour out to other people. And I haven't really been doing a good job of that. And so I'm trying to get my focus back together and get my situation back together so that I can better serve all of you. Yeah, I got stuff I'm dealing with, stuff I need to heal, stuff I need to work through, stuff I need to spend more time investing in, and I need to get that together. So that may mean podcast episodes might be delayed. It might be every other week instead of every week. I might not do videos as much as I was doing before, but I know I do have a lot of content that I've already done. I got a lot of shorts, I got a lot of lives, and those things I'm going to start cutting up and chopping up and sharing because I think it's beneficial. And I also have, like, when I talk to my wife about her art and the things that she does, and I feel this way about anybody, whether you're a writer or creator of some sort, you probably have a lot of, I call it coal. You have a lot of raw materials that you've probably produced and that you've acquired over time that needs to be refined. But very often for us, we like to keep looking for the next new thing or keep trying to develop something more when you have a storehouse of lots and lots of stuff that if you just polished it up, if you just spent some time making sure it was cut the right way and gives enough pressure, and, like, for instance, say you have blog posts just waiting because you have months and years of journal entries. Go back, grab one of those journal entries, edit it, add some more stuff to it, post it. So I have a lot of that kind of stuff that I need to just repost, that I need to repackage and share because I think it would still be fruitful and helpful for you all. So yeah, that's advice. Again, that's unsolicited advice. But if you more than likely you have a lot of coal, you have a lot of raw materials in your life that you just need to make available. Package it the right way, you make it available and share it. Whether it's music, whether it's ideas, whether it's whatever, the knowledge that you currently have, you probably have a lot of raw materials to work with, and you don't necessarily need to go somewhere else to get something that could be beneficial to share with other people. I'm on a tangent, so hear me out. I was recently watching a series that Julian Gordon, I mentioned him on my channel before. He talks a lot about wealth consciousness and stuff like that. He's doing this series, this is a 100-day money mindset program, where he's reading through this book that he wrote called Rich and Righteous. And one of the things that he touched on, one of the scriptures that he touched on, was the story where Jesus breaks the bread of the five loaves and 2 fish. And he ends up feeding the 5,000. And based off of the Gospels, he did that more than once. He did it with 5,000 people. He did it with 4,000 people. One of the things that had resonated for me in that story is understanding that really is an archetype of how we should be showing up to serve other people. Like, you start with what you already have. So Jesus is asking the disciples, and the disciples are, all right, it's time to send the people away because they got a long journey to go and they're here, and we want to make sure that they get back and then they get something to eat so they're not out so late. But then Jesus says, feed them. What do you feed them? Like, you don't have to send them away, feed them. And they're like, what? How are we going to feed them? We don't have enough money for this. And he's like, well, what do you have? And it's the 5 loaves and the 2 fish. And you see what Jesus does. He takes what he already has. Then he gives thanks for it. He presents it to the Most High and he blesses it. I think the scripture says he blesses, he blesses the bread and the fish or whatever. And when you break that down, it can mean a couple of different things. It's like you give thanks for it. You can ask God to consecrate it, to bless his stuff. And then he breaks it down and multiplies it and distributes it. At the end of it, everybody had enough. And the disciples, there are baskets left over. So he started with a little that he already had, but once he committed it to God and once he committed it to a good purpose, was willing to break it apart and distribute it to others, it multiplied, it grew, and it served a purpose. And I'm honestly feeling that way about my life. Like there are a lot of things that I already have in me that I think I just need to break down, give thanks for, bless it, ask God to consecrate it, break it down, and then just distribute it. So yeah, like I have a lot of journal entries. I have a lot of blog posts. I have a lot of raw material that I just need to say, God, thank you for this. Consecrate it, bless it, help it to be beneficial for other people, and just break it and distribute it. And know that even if it starts with a little bit, in my mind, it always multiplies and grows, because at the end of that story, they had more than what they started with, which is the crazy, miraculous thing about it, you know. But I believe that same principle applies to us in our individual lives as we're walking with the Most High and as we're, you know, committing to being beneficial men, and we're committing to live for glory and for good. Give thanks for what you already have, break it and distribute it, and keep it pushing. Okay, the end of that tangent. I haven't even gone into the mental check-in, which is where we do the high, low, and what you've been creating. So make sure to ask that in your own life. Check in with yourself as often as you can. What's been the high or highlight of your life? What's kind of been the low, the struggle, or the thing that, you know, you wish you didn't, you know, have to experience recently in your life? And then have you been creating? Checking in to see, am I actually spending time creating and producing things, or am I just sitting around? So starting with the high. The high for me recently, I was able to change the brakes on our car, which is very satisfying to me. I've only done it one other time before, and I had a friend help me. Shout out to Brian for helping me go through the process of, you know, replacing your brakes, you know, the brake pads and the rotors and stuff like that. In theory, it's actually a very simple process. The difficult part is doing it. And like the thing that I had the hardest time with was actually getting off like the bolts and stuff so that I could take things apart and put it together. You know, eventually, with God's grace and some better tools, I was able to do it. And I just feel very accomplished and satisfied and fulfilled in that. Like, yes, I was able to do this. Yes, I know I'm able to do mechanical things. I'm able to fix stuff or do stuff or whatever, but I definitely respect and appreciate people who are professional mechanics who use a skill set or have developed a skill set to be able to serve other people. And when I get my money up, I will definitely be paying people to do these things. Not to say I wouldn't want to do it myself, but hey, if you're better at it than me, I don't see why I should deny you the right of doing it and being able to support you financially. But, you know, I'm in that process of becoming wealthy and having the resources to be able to pay people to do the things that they're good at. Because I think that that's what we should do. If you have one resource to share with somebody else, why not? You know, whether it's artists, whether it's chefs, whether it's mechanics, whatever it is. If somebody's better at something and they're using their skill set, pay them for it. You know, pay them fairly for it. Pay them well if you can, you know. But yeah, that was my high, replacing the brakes on our car. The low, this past weekend, went out of town again to attend another funeral, which is just, again, you know, I don't know. This must be a real big season of grief and reflection for me, because, you know, that's what happens very often at like homegoing services and funerals and stuff. And it makes you think about life. It makes you think about the things that hopefully you find important in your life, and it gives you time to reflect. And yeah, this has definitely been a very reflective season of my life. You know, this season, I've had to look at myself in the mirror with a lot of things. I've had to self-reflect on a lot of stuff. I've had to question a lot of things. And that'd be hard. That it can be very, very challenging. I know one of my other episodes or my other videos, I talked about taking criticism constructively. Yes, this has definitely been that season for me. And I'm committing and deciding to do the best that I can with it so that I can change and so that I can grow. So yeah, it's a low in the sense that someone else has transitioned from this realm to the next realm. You know, it's heartbreaking, and it's heartbreaking to see those who are close to that person. So we went out of town for one of my wife's cousins' grandmother had passed away, but they were close, you know, and they had a relationship. And so to lose anybody that you're close with or have a relationship with can be hard. And to see that, you know, to be there to try to comfort and support and to show empathy and sympathy is important. But yeah, it's not necessarily ideal. So that was kind of a low, attending another funeral. Have I been creating recently? I have. I've been working on improving my skills, like my video editing skills, using Adobe Premiere And so that's been fun, having the opportunity to keep improving that skill set. Do I ultimately like desire to be like a professional, like best video editor out there? No, not at all. But I do know I have experience with it, and I do want to be able to serve and help people however I can while I'm growing and focusing on the other thing. Like something I really do want to master is acting. Hence, I have this voiceover booth here, this portable voiceover booth that I use for my voiceover and my voice acting. But acting, having to be honest about that, like acting is definitely something I really do want to master and become a pro at, along with some other stuff. But video editing is not one of those. But I do want to become pretty good at it so that I can serve people that I have the opportunity to serve. All right, so that's the mental check-in. What did I learn from this week? This week, in time of reflection and thinking about different aspects of my life or whatever, something that I know that I really struggle with and that I kind of regret is that I let comparison squelch or destroy my dreams and passions. And you don't want that to happen. You don't want to let comparison squelch your dreams and passions, because I did. And there are 3 examples of how that happened to me. When that happens, I think that puts us in a not good place. That puts us in a place where we might be frustrated. We might be full of regret. Bitterness can be there. And we can start to like dim our light because we're so concerned about comparison and not being our full selves. So the first way is I used to write a lot more, like creative writing, short stories. I've always desired to write a novel. I used to write poetry. I used to write a lot. What happened to me is, I think, I had the opportunity to join a spoken word like troupe or group. And there were some very, very good poets. Some very, very good poets and very, very good spoken word artists. You know, personally, I would think like, oh, okay, I think the poetry and stuff that I've written is pretty good. It's okay. And then you get around people who are like really, really good at it. You start to compare yourself like, oh man, my stuff is trash compared to these poets, to these spoken word artists. I think I slowly just started to be like, you know what? This poetry writing thing, how about we just go ahead and throw this in the trash? Because I'm not good at it, you know, because I'm not as good as I thought I was in comparison to other people when it came to the actual writing, when it came to the performance, when it came to all that stuff. And so that was, you know, one of the things that I was like, nah, other people can go ahead and do that. They can go ahead and be poets or whatever. Even though I enjoyed writing, I enjoyed doing spoken words or writing lyrics and stuff like that. I enjoyed doing that, especially when I had thoughts and ideas. But because I saw other people who really excelled in that, I was like, forget it. Forget it. I'm not doing this. Give it up. The other thing that I kind of gave up that I was interested in and that I was enjoying was DJing. Like in college, I made the investment and bought some DJing equipment because I thought DJing was cool. So I had like turntables that I could spin with vinyl. Then I had like a digital set, kind of similar to like Serato, but it was a different brand. So I had DJ equipment. I was investing in it. I was learning. I was trying to teach myself or whatever. And I think eventually, similar to comparison, something that was a turnoff for me and which kind of like helped me to like kick it to the side was realizing the work that was necessary to improve in that skill set, to improve in that thing. You know, like if you really want to be a good DJ, you need to invest time. You need to invest time. You need to invest money, and you need to invest energy so that you can develop that craft. Like DJing, if you're a really, really good DJ, it's more than just playing songs. It's more than just making a playlist. It is a whole skill set. Respect the DJ. Put respect in a DJ's name, especially if they're good. DJing is a big deal. At least that's my understanding of it, right? And so as I was trying to grow in it and trying to learn about it, I think, again, that comparison kicked in, and I started comparing myself to other DJs. And I also started thinking about the weight of what was required to get better at DJing. Again, another thing to be like, I'm not going to do this. Let me just take this thing and put it in the trash. Like, I'm just going to put it away. So like, yeah, I sold my equipment. I got rid of everything. I gave my records away to other DJs and people who were interested in music. And it's just like, nope, I don't do this. I don't do this. Like, I think I DJ'd a couple of gigs or whatever, and they were fine. And people appreciated me DJing or whatever. They liked me doing it. And for a while, people kept thinking that I was a DJ. But I was like, no, I took that DJ hat off. That DJ hat off, I threw it away, and I just stopped. And one of the last things that I feel like I kind of just let go of, because again, I think it really did come down to comparison, was making music. I think I started making music in high school. So that was probably around 2005. 2005. when I made a mixtape for my high school girlfriend. In the mixtape, I had made a couple of songs for her. So I wrote the lyrics and I produced the music or whatever. It was trash, but I think it was it was the thought that counts. It's like, oh, it's romantic. Like you made a mixtape and then you put your own songs on there or whatever. It is what it is, right? And so since then, I had been steadily trying to improve that skill and that craft of producing music, learning about music theory, teaching myself different stuff, buying equipment, investing in equipment, so on and so forth. Then it got to a point where I think I was focusing on turning music production into a career or turning it in a way to make money, that I think the comparison started kicking in. Because I was going through this program where you learn about, this is like a music production program, but you learn all these other things to become more or less like a professional studio engineer for music production. So you were supposed to learn about live sound. You're supposed to learn about how to run things in a studio. You're supposed to learn about the different ways and methods to produce music and to mix and master and all that stuff. So it was a cool program. And I was interested at the time when I started. I was like, okay, this can be something that could be used as a stepping stone to move me further in my career. Because at that time, I was working at a church. I had live sound experience that I was developing. I had music production experience because I had produced couple of mixtapes, produce my own projects, help with other people do their stuff, record and produce and mix their own stuff or whatever. And so it was like, okay, if I'm really going to do this, I need to do the next step. I enrolled into the school and it was going well. And eventually I think one of the little foxes that kind of came in and started crushing that dream for me was comparison. Because there were a lot of people who were there in this program. Everybody's at different levels. Looking at it in hindsight, but everybody was at different levels and different ages. A lot of the people who were there were like super, super passionate about music though. We were super, super passionate about music creation, production, and all that stuff. And that showed forth in like their knowledge about music, their knowledge about producers, their knowledge about software, knowledge about this, whatever. You could hear it in their conversation and them talking, how passionate they were about it. But for me at the time, it didn't feel like I was passionate about it. It was just like, I'm just doing this so I can get a check. And when I was enrolling in the school, one of the things that they kept harping on was asking, it's like, are you really, really passionate about music? Are you really passionate about making music and everything around and centered around music? And, starting off, I was like, yeah, I am. I'm passionate about music. Like, I like to make music. I like to listen to music, so on and so forth, or whatever. And I think the more time I spent around other people who were like diehard fans of music, lovers of music. Like, for instance, I think my wife is a lover of music. I think I like music. I think I really like music and I appreciate it. But I don't think music is like my first love. There are some people who like music is their everything. I don't think that was the thing for me. Should that have been enough for me to say, I'm not going to go through this program? Because again, at the end of the day, it was going through the program, learning these skill sets, continuing to grow in an industry that I could use to ultimately leverage to make more money. I pulled out of the program for various reasons. I pulled out of the program. I think a big part of it, though, was a comparison thing that started squelching, or I allowed to start minimizing my dream and my passion about doing music production and serving people in this capacity. Like, I would compare myself. It's like, oh, this person over here knows all this stuff and they're really, really good at it. And this person over here, they're like a musician. They play like multiple instruments and stuff like that and so on and so forth. Like they have it. And I'm just here teaching myself Fruity Loops, and I run some sound at my church. And, the thing is, at that time, I had been learning and teaching myself stuff for close to 10 years, but I didn't feel qualified. And in comparison to other people, I was like, this is not it. I think once I started feeling that way and that ideal and that thought and that belief set in, it then led to the actions of me dropping out of the course and really taking music production, as like with other things, with poetry and DJing, taking these things and putting it in the trash. And I think for music production, it kind of was on the side. It was like on the brim of the trash bin. Because every once in a while, I'll pick it up and I'll do stuff with it. But why do I say all this? Why is this important in regards to what I learned from this week? Don't let comparison stop you from dreaming. Don't let comparison stop you from having something that you're passionate about or something that you're interested about. What advice would I give? I would encourage every one of us, to protect your genius. I'm going to put a link in the description from a talk that Beleaf In Fatherhood, Glenn Henry, did about protecting your genius. Why I think that's so important is because I think a lot of us have passions and dreams. We have gifts and abilities and things that we have developed or that are just in us. But because we're looking at other people and comparing ourselves to other people, we hide that light. We cover it, we bury it, and we don't cultivate it when we should. Comparison stops us from being all of ourselves. And that can manifest in so many different ways. And I think this is important for us striving to become beneficial men, is because we need to lean in on those gifts. We need to lean into those dreams. We need to lean into those passions, those things that the Most High has placed inside of us, because that's a part of our service. That is a part of us living for glory and for good. Whatever those things are. Sometimes, things are just fads, like things are hobbies or whatever. It's like, as an example, Tony Hawk, when Tony Hawk was really popular in like the 90s and 2000s or whatever, on top of and along with like Lupe Fiasco, everybody wanted to skateboard. Everybody wanted to, be a skater. Somebody wanted, be a part of like X Games. You wanted to BMX bikes or whatever. That became a thing. Some people really took it seriously. Like that was in them. Other people were just like, oh, I just want to be Tony Hawk. And the most they got was a high score playing Tony Hawk Pro Skater. They may have bought a skateboard, learned how to do a kickflip, and that was about it. But it wasn't really deeply ingrained in them. And that's fine. I think this is absolutely okay. And it's important that we have hobbies. We have things that we just enjoy. But those things that are deep, those things that are dreams or passions, or those things that are like, you can't get away from it, and other people see it in you, cultivate it. Protect that genius. Protect those things, because it needs to grow. You need to tend to it so that that can become that bread that you break that I mentioned earlier in the episode. Like, there are so much raw materials that's in us that we're not using, that we're not providing for others to benefit from. In our efforts to strive to become beneficial Black men, we're shortchanging our community. We're shortchanging those around us. And that could be beneficial financially or whatever, but it could also be beneficial just in general, because it puts a smile on somebody's face, or it allows somebody else to dream. It allows somebody else to grow and be their best selves. But if we're always comparing ourselves to other people, we're stopping and hindering ourselves from being our best selves. So we got to stop doing that. We got to stop comparing ourselves to other people. And, the thought that comes to mind for me is like, we have to stop comparing ourselves as Black men. We have to stop comparing ourselves to other men, particularly white men. Like, what I've noticed in a lot of the manosphere space and like the red pill stuff or whatever, a lot of us use them as like the pinnacle of what success should be, but it's lacking. Like, it's not necessarily good. There's something unique in us and unique specific for our community that we need to pay attention to and that we need to lean into. Like, God designed us for a reason, and he designed us uniquely for a particular purpose that is going to be beneficial for, his glory and for the good of those in our community. But if we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people and trying to be like other people's and not be ourselves, to be our full blown beneficial selves, trusting in our melanin and like thriving in that, we're always going to miss the mark. We're always going to miss the mark. And like the other advice I would give in regards to like protecting your genius and not letting comparison squelch your dreams and passions is to hold on to the joy you get from whatever you're doing. I didn't do that. I did not do that. When it came to poetry, I let that go because I was thinking about other stuff or other people or how this is going to look or whatever. Same thing with DJing. Even though I enjoyed spinning music, I enjoyed helping other people dance. Like, I enjoyed that, but I gave up on that. And then even with music production, comparing myself to other people who may have been more proficient in music, like actual instrumentation and being a musician, or comparing myself because I didn't have the knowledge that a lot of other people did, and dropped the ball in that. But you got to hold on to the things that joy, that internal happiness that exists within you. You got to hold on to that. You got to cultivate that and make sure it lives, so that you can take those raw materials that you've been given and the things that have been developing in your life, so that you can break bread and distribute it to others, so that others can be blessed. Because that's what we're supposed to be doing as beneficial men, serving other people, living for glory and living for good. But let me know, like, have you ever felt like you've lost a dream because of comparison? If so, let me know. Let me know what that dream may have been, or that passion. Let me know what that is. Black man, you're called for more than mediocre living. You're here for a purpose, to live for glory and for good. Protect your mental, find time for an emotional release valve, and keep striving to become beneficial. I believe in you. Go make something for yourself, of yourself, and for glory and for good. Peace.